To all our listeners and viewers, a very good morning from myself, Ravi R., your official host for the Sip and Drip podcast. It is an absolute pleasure to be at the beginning of something that's going to really revolutionize the markets. And when we start talking about markets, from anything and absolutely everything, but our focus particularly is on the medtech market. And today I am absolutely honored to have our special guests in studio with us right here in the heart of Durban. We welcome Emmerentia Fritz from Gauteng. Thank you very much for joining us and welcome to Durban.
Thanks for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. And of course, the MD of Jehu Industries, one of the leaders in technology, one of the leaders in their field. Let's welcome as well Jeremy Naidu. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah,
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. What I would firstly like to say, congratulations on this amazing venture, the Sip and Drip podcast. It's something that we decided to share, not only internally, but to many people who aren't really familiar with what happens behind the scenes when it comes to the world of compliance, when it comes to the world of regulation, when it comes to all things certified. And today we have experts with us when we can be breaking down exactly what it means when we talk about being regulated in the industry. So today on Sip and Drip, we're talking about our very first podcast, giving an insight into the world of ISO management and standards, and of course, how they actually impact healthcare and the medical distribution. Emmerentia, just give us a little bit of background as to where all of this started for you, where exactly you are, and your vision for ISO.
I used to be a clinical engineer way back in the day. Feels like 100 years ago now. But I used to work for one of the big private hospital groups. And then from there, I went over to medical sales. I did ventilation, anesthesia machines, good lacquer capital stuff.
Thanks.
And then I decided I wanted to try something new. So I went to an international company and I did orthopedics. So first sports meds and then recon. Not really my thing, but I learned a lot.
Sure.
And then I got the opportunity to become a product manager and technical manager for another company in Roodepoort. Loved it, but the lifestyle didn't work for us. So my husband said to me one evening, listen, I think housewife is in your future.
Oh.
So I resigned.
Yeah.
And I did the housewife thing for 2 months.
And that didn't work. And that didn't work.
It didn't work for me. But my brother, actually, he's in the more industrial side. So he said to me, look into this ISO 13485 thing. I think it might be up your alley. So I, looked at it and I did some courses. And as I went to get my car license in Midrand, I bumped into this guy and I got a job as a consultant for Reef Consulting. And that's what I've been doing now for the last couple of years.
So for me, how I read that is whatever was ordained for you happened the way it should, because it's not just coincidence when you meet somebody by chance at a car wash or wherever the case may be.
Absolutely.
And suddenly you're offered a job. So I do believe that you were destined for it, all right, from my understanding of what you're telling us, and that you are the right person to be here because, you are a leader in industry, you're a captain in industry, you are widely recognized as one of the best in the country. And not only with that, the fact is that we appreciate you traveling all the way from Heidelberg, a little town, to be with us here in our little town, coastal Durban, to be part of this and to help us strategize and understand about ISO and quality management systems. Now, this is much I know, okay? ISO or 13485. What does that mean? What does it mean to the person who's zoned in right now, who's listening and watching and thinking, okay, we are appealing to market in terms of trying to create a consciousness about quality management systems in the medtech industry. All right. How does it affect the users? And of course, as a result, the end user. The end user would naturally be me, could be my mom, could be a friend, could be your husband. And this is where these things are very, very critical as to how we align quality management with industry. So talk us through it. Talk us through ISO 13485.
Yes, I think the main thing is most people don't even know what it is. And the ones that do think it's a scary boogeyman that's coming to get you. Okay, so let's make it simple. Let's say let's explain ISO 13485 like you're baking a cake.
Right.
You need to know what cake you want to bake. You need a recipe. You need the right infrastructure because you're not going to bake a cake in the living room. That's going to be messy and terrible. You need to know what you need to make the cake with. And whether you are doing it yourself, are you competent? Or if your kid is helping you, at least supervise what's happening there.
Sure.
Okay. So now you're baking this lovely cake and it's fantastic and you're using the right equipment. You know how it works. It's working correctly. You're storing your ingredients right because you can't have the eggs in the sun.
Correct.
I mean, that's not going to be good for anyone. So you're baking this cake and it's great. And you invite some people to have cake and tea and you get feedback. I mean, that was now nice. How's your cake? Okay, no, it's nice, but it's a little dry. So I don't know how your people, how your grandmothers did it, but mine would then write in her recipe book to make it better.
Old school.
Add more sugar or put some vanilla in or whatever.
So improving systems.
Improving it the whole time. And then get constant feedback because you keep on inviting people. So ISO 13485 is exactly the same thing, but for the medtech industry. So it's telling you what you should do, how you should do it, what do you need? Do you have the right people? Do you have the right infrastructure? Do you have the right equipment? And getting feedback to constantly improve it. So it's processes that are in place and procedures, work instructions to help people. So imagine you starting at a new company. You've had the induction. They've told you what to do. But, it's very daunting.
Yes.
It's new and scary and you're too afraid to ask a question. The idea is to go and pull the procedure and see, oh, wait, this is what I need to do. I need to fill in this form and this is where I'm going to get it. No problem. So now when I ask a question to my new manager, it's a better constructed question because I know what to do. There's a guideline for it. So ISO 13485 is almost like I don't want to say rule book. Rule book is so strict. It's a guideline of how to get your business to work to the best of its ability to make sure that the products that get to the end user, which is the patients, are safe and effective. So you've got the best equipment in those hospitals, saving lives and not causing havoc.
Thank you very much, Emerentia, for sharing that with us, and as you're talking, it's making me think because as the end user, and I'm using myself as an example, we would always want to know, firstly, the products that we're buying is based on research that has been compiled, that we're buying it from the correct place. And as end users, as consumers, what we really do is we rely on the brand name that we're buying from. So I'll use an example for you. We know a particular brand name that's very well known in the market, and I feel safe going to that particular store to buy a product off the shelf. However, what certainty and guarantee is there that I know that product did indeed follow the ISO 13485 procedure? There's no guarantee, right? Because we don't know who the end user is, but the person who's in compliance, do they have the knowledge or perhaps are they just an administrative order taker that says, okay, you're supplying the product, we can buy the product because of whatever. Do they dig deeper into it to say, we need to check your compliance, we need to check the ticks on the boxes. We've got to make sure everything's 100% correct. Because I've had so many instances where there's litigation involved with companies to the point where there was something wrong with the product. And then you think to yourself, but wait, surely somebody in that cycle of that business, somewhere along the line, did the necessary checks. Jeremy, maybe you can enlighten us. I don't know of any examples, but I've heard of litigation. I mean, it's all over. If you go right now and you go and research this, there's litigation when it comes to having products that were kind of tampered with, or maybe they didn't follow the correct procedure. And I'm assuming that is where ISO 13485 comes in. Your take on that?
Hi, Ravi. Yeah, it's a tough one, but you are 100% correct. There is the instances where there's massive big brands in the world that had a case. I mean, they are they follow protocols and achieve standards like CE mark, which is for the European standard. FDA normally takes care of the
American,
standards for American.
if I remember that, FDA approves America,
and
right?
then the SAP for Canadian market or thing, and Visa is for Brazil. But this massive brand of a company would have followed.
Let me stop you there. Does South Africa have something like that? This is important because
think-
we're concentrating on our South African market. For me, that's what I'm concerned
But
about
we're
right
getting
now.
there. I would think our gatekeeper, which is SAHPRA, is
Right.
doing a fantastic job of bringing us up to standard. And look, we have to give credit where it's due. It was a slow start, and they started off with pharmaceuticals to regulate the industry. So everybody knows that, and thank God they do regulate the pharmaceutical industry, because that's very dangerous as well if it was unregulated.
Correct.
And there came a point in time where they had to say, guys, and draw a line in the sand to say, we are going to start to regulate medical devices because it's just as important and just as dangerous in the wrong hands, and so on,
Sure.
for different categories. So there are big brands that had issues where they would send it to the stores to be purchased by the consumer. The consumer would take it, buy it, and then the risk attached to that was, if it were not stored correctly, transported correctly, the product was, what it was doing, it was like degrading.
Yeah.
And remember, no fault of the manufacturer, because they met the standards. They qualified in achieving those standards that it needed to be manufactured under. But the distributor didn't have a quality management system to follow.
That's scary.
It was he stored the goods in high temperature places, transporting in extreme heat. And what was happening when the patients were using the product, normal use, it was the fibers of the product was degrading. And only to find out a couple months down the line, the patient is ill. And when they did a deep dive, obviously they went back to manufacturer because of the branding.
Sure.
And they would want to start to sue the manufacturer. But then when the manufacturer did his balances and checks, he's thoroughly in his rights that the product they manufactured were of extreme high quality, and the performance of the product now doesn't match up with what they did. Because remember, when big global brands manufacture a product, there's a lot of tests that they do. This is not your normal ISO checks that you and I know
Probably
about.
on a higher standard.
It's like bioburden tests. They do biocompatibility tests. They go more deeper because they want to see how it affects the patient's body, right? And one of the main things is they got this in check. So then they said, if our house is in order, who's our distributor? And
There we go.
And then the result of this degrading of the product will only be if it was exposed to high or extreme temperatures. So if it left our premises 100%, we've maintained the temperature, we have logs for it, we have processes to show that when it got to the distributor, it got there at the right temperature, it got there at the right time frame, everything was in spec. When we transferred ownership onto that distributor, what did he do with it? So ISO, following these little checks and balances and procedures, sort of safeguards you as a company, because you become credible when you have a quality system that you follow. You can lean back and know that this is your foundation.
Sure.
Things can't go wrong if everything is in order.
So what, as you talk, I'm thinking, and that scares me, because let's track back. Let's go back at least 5 years when COVID came about, right?
It's been 5 years now. Wow.
5 years. That's how fast time flies. Now, that pandemic really literally shook the world. But you know what concerns me is that at that stage, and I've seen this on social media, and it concerned me that every other auntie and uncle were selling masks. They were manufacturing masks in their garages at home. Now,
With material.
with material.
Yeah.
Now, that's the one example that comes to mind. I'm sure there are lots of others. Because at the end of the day, what I'm alluding to is that we don't know any better as the end user. We trust in the manufacturer, we trusting in the distributor, we trusting that the processes are followed correctly. So the point I'm making is with ISO 13485, this needs to be, more emphasis needs to be placed in a South African context, I would think, to make things better for us, giving us peace of mind as end user, right?
Absolutely. But now the hospitals also has a role to play. Because the end user doesn't know how to ask these questions or that they should ask these questions. And even if you give them a report or a record, they don't know what to look for. So your hospital decision makers and procurement team, they should be the gatekeepers, like you say, to double check that whom you're using is certified.
100%. I mean, you mentioned the word who you trust. And you
Yes.
trust that everything is above board and correct. But let me flip the switch for you
Sure.
and tell it to you the way I see it. Even though you trust that, you're still accountable to know.
Absolutely.
That's scary. And I'm going to tell you why it's scary. Because your granny who doesn't know any better,
She's accountable to know.
she's 84 years old. I don't expect her to know.
Then choose the right hospital or facility for her
Yes.
that understands what she needs. Now, it all boils down to the gatekeeper at the end of the day. You, as her son, where would you put her? In a facility that compromises healthcare because of the cost? Or where would you like to place her? Because if you're going to give her poor quality healthcare, what does poor quality healthcare bring about?
No, I
Better
disagree.
patient outcomes or
Worst patient
worse?
outcome.
So what do you want from them, Ravi? Would you want her to up and leave one day and be fit and healthy? Or if a complication comes, you're going to start suing them? What do you remember, it starts with you. You decided to put it there.
I fully agree, but I would place my mum personally, we're using that as an example, because she's on private medical healthcare, okay? I would place her into a facility that I have utmost faith and trust in. However, again, I've heard, being in the media, I've heard of so many cases where someone has an operation and they picked up an infection in the hospital, which is considered world-class, 5-star, private. How do we work around that? Let me flip the switch now and let's take it one step back. So who's accountable for that? And that's where litigation starts. That's where somebody who's had an operation, they've come out of that operation and then they've got to go back to theater to be operated again. So I hear you. ISO 13485 is critically important. So do you know how I read this? I would read it as follows, that hospitals need to have the correct staff in there. They need to do checks and balances on distributors, manufacturers. I think healthcare professionals play such an
Absolutely.
integral role and part in this that they need to question these things. And more particularly so, hospital staff as well have to be trained adequately.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. You hit the nail on the head. However, if you look at almost every medtech company globally right now, they are all producing evidence-based medical devices that want to promote better patient outcomes. It's almost a standard for all medtech companies right now.
Sure.
They achieve this. But for the proper effective functioning of a medical device, it has to be stored in the right temperatures. It has to be
Sold by
governed and
competent people.
sold by competent people. It has to be administered by someone who's competent. Mechanical failure on a device largely is, it happens all the time. However, what influences that failure? We got to understand that part. And for me, it's taking accountability as a company. I mean, I own a company that does medical devices now.
Sure.
Right? And I could choose to give you a product that can tick your boxes. And I'm saying tick your boxes because our landscape in South Africa is changing very fast in terms of our economy. Now, the medical funders are pushing back to say they are seeing a device under a global molecular number, Right. So what I'm saying is, you may have a pen that clicks, or you may have a pen that doesn't click. But the function of this pen is to write. It's to shut down. Right? So they're not when they give you a reimbursement on a product. Largely put, they're looking at that number of both pens, one that clicks and one that doesn't click. They both get the same number.
Sure.
Because it's doing the same thing. The end point is it's doing the same thing. So right now, the benefit of the click means maybe the tip retracts so it doesn't dries up the ink, so you're able to achieve your script a little bit better. You understand?
Yeah.
But now you find value in that because you're an end user. Sure. As a funder, if I was a funder, I wouldn't really care because it's getting the job done. You're writing. You still pay.
Yeah.
You understand?
The end result.
So my pocket will pay for something that makes sense. And right, I don't need to understand what's convenient for you, where you want the click and you want your ink not to be dried up as such. Right? So similarly, in some hospital environments, when it comes to critical products, they would not want to spend more because the reimbursement on it means that it's either shared between the hospital and the insurance funder, or they look too expensive, and that means some insurers will send their subscribers to another facility because you're too expensive. So they got a very small window to play in to tick the box to get reimbursement 100%, so they don't lose money. So now healthcare depends on that, whether they're going to lose money or make money.
Wow.
So what product do you use in order to make money? Because I'm hoping you're going to keep the lights on in the hospital. You have to make money. Right? So where does it come from? How do you get it? You have to bet smarter, right? So do you use the pen with the click, or with 2 rand more? Or do you use the pen with no click and save 2 rand?
Beautifully explained. It makes you think, though, do we put money or profits before people? Look,
I mean, it's tough, because if you put your shoes in the owners of the insurance companies, for them, they'll give you an argument that products are also loosely used to achieve a certain outcome. And then there's so much of stats around the world where there are some products that are has too much of technology to do a simple procedure. Why must they pay for something like that?
Sure.
When you could reduce the cost of healthcare. And remember, South Africa is still in a better off position, I think, when it comes to us as subscribers or end users that pay medical insurance compared to the rest of the world. For what we get, the level of healthcare that we get is still way under. I mean, Discovery puts up the premiums every year.
Like any other insurance company.
I don't complain about it.
Yes.
Because until you know what other people around the world are paying for our healthcare, you would never complain.
Wow.
You would never complain.
Okay, but now let's throw it back to 13485.
Right.
So if you, as a hospital, asked to use a company, you've checked them. They've got a SAHPRA license, which is extremely important because otherwise you are trading illegally, mind you. And they've got ISO 13485. One of the features of ISO 13485 is to make sure the requirements of the hospital, of the user, is met. So then you cut out having to buy a ventilator that is top of the range, but you're only going to use it for something small. So you're not buying the wrong thing. You're buying the right thing because you had the right people selling it to you. But like you said earlier, that then comes down to who are you buying from? Have you checked them? Have you asked the right questions? Because the 80-year-old grandmother and her son is not going to know to ask those questions.
Absolutely.
100%.
So you think a ventilator is a ventilator. We know that's not the right. That's
Remember,
not right.
ISO 13485, it covers not just product quality, right? So there's 2 aspects as a gatekeeper I would look at, is to first verify that the product was made under the right standard to give the end result what it says it should do and how to help my grandmother, right? So you got to make sure, okay, the product was either made under It has CE marking, which means the standard on CE is a whole new directive. It's hard, it's extremely difficult. And in that factory that made it under those standards, you got a fairly good product, right? So if you check that out, I'm not saying every end user is going to do it. They rely on that gatekeeper, which generally is the hospital procurement team, right? So you factualize that product quality, the product quality.
Gotcha.
So ISO ticks that box. But ISO largely also ticks the box for the warehousing and distribution of the product.
Sure.
Because as I said to you before, the product could be made under fantastic standards. But when it left in a container that sat in the Atlantic for 40 days in the sun,
Is it
now
gonna work?
who's testing that part?
Yeah.
You understand?
You know what I was thinking when you and I had that talk earlier with regards to this specific thing? Your brakes can be ISO certified.
Mm-hmm.
Just the brakes is ISO certified. That's fantastic. But the person in the car isn't necessarily safe because now that ISO test that was done on your brakes wasn't done on the whole car. So 13485 is basically regulating the whole car where certain ISO specification tests are only done on that product. Only the brakes are checked.
Yeah.
For certain things, not even everything, where ISO checks everything. From the moment that thing arrives till it goes to the grandmother.
So, Emerentia, let me take it back to you. What does this whole new SAHPRA stance for companies that want to be in the manufacturing space, or whether they want to import or whether they want to distribute medical devices here in South Africa, how does it kind of like affect their way of trading?
Well, firstly, you need a SAHPRA license. Okay, so that's very important. Otherwise, you are trading illegally. Then, SAHPRA has now, earlier this year, released a letter saying that it's going to happen in stages. Stage 1 has already happened. It's been happening since 2017, where they said, listen, you need to implement ISO 13485. If you don't have it, you're going to get in trouble soon.
Yes.
So the soon is now. If you have a license and you want to renew it, you have to have proof of ISO 13485, that you've either implemented it, so you've got a certification from an accredited CAB that is recognized by SAHPRA. CAB is a certified accreditation body that has been approved by SAHPRA to say, okay, you've got it. Or you have to have a letter saying that that company is being audited on this date. So you've got proof that you've started the system and it's happening. So that's for renewals. Then if you want to do an amendment, I think that's 2026, April 2026 or June 2026,
Okay.
you have to have the same thing.
Right.
Either a certificate or a letter saying that you're busy with it. And by the 1st of April 2028, if I'm not mistaken,
All right.
that's for
about
all
3
of
years.
us. If you want to do a new license, the renewal, or change your license, do an amendment or a notification to it, you will need to have ISO 13485. So if you don't have it, you won't be able to get your SAHPRA license or keep your SAHPRA license. And then you won't be able to trade legally.
Sure. Right. Thank you for sharing that, Emerentia. As well, something that comes to mind, how can hospital groups actually, adjust or comply with the correct tender processes and vendor approvals as well in accordance with SAHPRA as well? How do you think that could work to
Some
improve
of them-
systems?
Some of them have been asking for it. Not all of them, but some of them started asking the questions. So if you want to tender for them, or if they want to buy from you, they are now asking for your SAHPRA license or your status of ISO 13485 certification. And if you don't have it, they won't buy from you. So that was nice to see that the private companies started doing that. And even in some of the government tenders, it's coming up. So I'm hoping this wave is going to go over to all the hospitals, because then, they're asking the right questions. You are minimizing your risk in the hospital.
Right.
So, they've started. So I want to applaud them for that.
Something quite interesting in the medtech industry as well is the fact that when it comes to products, how does this take place? How does that occur? Is there a process and is there compliance on that?
It varies from organization to organization, right? But it's safe to say that there's a criteria in which they work with the procurement team, right? you would want to achieve the right product with the right amount of technology to give you the best patient outcome at the right price. I think that's the formula. And often you would see that price has a scoring where it's a large part of the score that qualifies you to get your product to look attractive for you to buy, right? So they look at the price.
So you've got to find the most effective product
Yeah.
at the most cost-effective price. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. And
Okay.
we're not going into more sensitive products where, you're looking in laparoscopic products or very theater-driven products. We're talking about, let's say, the run-of-the-mill products like gloves.
Yeah. Okay.
And gloves is like cheap. It's also non-chargeable, which means there's no reimbursement for the hospital. The hospital has to provide it as a service. So it's coming directly off the bottom line.
Sure.
Right? So you would want to get the cheapest product, correct? I mean,
Correct.
if you own a hospital, this is coming off your bottom line.
Yes, but you
You're
don't want to
using-
compromise quality as well, right?
But I mean,
You want the best quality
right
for your people.
Okay, so here's the flip side of the coin. Do you know one of the world's most highest contributors to cross contamination in a hospital facility is what?
Gloves?
Gloves. 100%.
Wow.
So you are actually promoting more problems in your hospital if you haven't selected the right glove to use within your facility. Huh?
But I
So
would
you're
assume like
saving-
this, there are many companies manufacturing gloves with different feels, textures, sizes,
100%,
etc., etc. How does that fit in?
100%. But let's talk about you as the hospital owner.
Right.
It's coming off your bottom line, right? Yes. Let's quantify it and factualize it. You spending 100 Rand on a box of gloves.
Sure.
So you use 1,000 boxes of gloves a month.
Right.
100 Rand times 1,000, what do we get?
10,000.
10,000?
Yeah.
10,000 Rand off your bottom line.
Gone.
Right? You're saving money by, let's say you get it now at 90 each and you just save 2,000 Rand.
Sure.
So what happens if I tell you on the flip side of the coin, your litigation bill just went out the roof because the infection rate in the hospital is so high. Contributing factor is that the infection is moving from ward to ward, and you can't see how you're cleaning, you're doing everything right. How is it doing? How is the infection growing within the facility?
And
Wow.
it gets worse, no? Let's go beyond gloves. Let's
Sure.
go deeper into theatre. So now you're using a company. Using a company that doesn't have ISO 13485. That unit needs to get serviced. Sometimes they do it on site, sometimes they do it off site. So Joe Soap sends his guy. He doesn't know that, listen, you need to wipe off this machine before I start working on it because there's no protocol in place. There's no system in place because they don't have ISO 13485. You don't know where he was before he came to your hospital, where you also didn't clean that machine, working with the same tools. So now he's bringing some hoja from one hospital into your
Yes.
hospital theatre, leaving, not even washing his hands, didn't make anyone sign off or show them what he did, and he's going. So
That's where the
now-
cross-contamination
yes.
comes in.
Or they take that unit off-site. They go
Correct.
repair it at their facility, which is not clean because they don't have ISO 13485, so the whole infrastructure clause is out of the window. It's not cleaned. It's not serviced and repaired with the right equipment that has been calibrated. So what are you getting back? You're getting something back that might have more infectious diseases than it did when it left, and it might not even be repaired in the right way. So if you choose, if the teams are going to choose who they let into the doors of the hospital, make sure it's people that know what they're doing with the right equipment and clean it correctly, because now you are transferring stuff from one place to the other place. It's one thing if it's transported from one ward to another, because you can do damage control within a hospital. But how do you do damage control for different hospitals that you can't even pick up the train? Because now I'm at Live, tomorrow I'm at Netcare, then I'm at
Wherever.
LaneMed, wherever.
Yes.
And I've taken that thing with me everywhere. You have to be bloody brilliant to pick that up. Okay, so you have to make sure who you allow into your doors to keep your patients safe. And like you said, what is your litigation bill going to be like?
Yeah, I mean,
So you're saving R2 here, but you have to pay
yeah.
2 more later.
yeah, I mean,
That's interesting.
there are gloves in the market that have technology in it that will kill anything, any organism, microorganism you touch. And microorganisms sit on every surface. You
Sure.
can't see it to them. It's not visible to the naked eye.
Sure.
But there are companies that have invested in technology that helps you reduce the risk of infection by having this technology and helping you save in cross contamination. It's worth you partnering with companies like that if you are trying to reduce your hospital associated infections within your facility, but not just valuing how much of money you save today.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because remember, a hospital associated infection occurs within the facility, presents when the patient has gone home.
Yes.
And if I understand correctly, some medical insurances are not paying for readmissions if it's classified as a hospital associated infection. So you want to have a partner that understands your challenges. As a hospital, you need that partner. And generally, ISO forces us as medtech companies to have that culture within us as a company. Is that how are you forcing yourself to go ahead to save your customers or understanding his challenges? What are you promoting within your company to make sure that the hospitals or your customers are safeguarded? What technology are you bringing, or have you assessed their challenges and how you can help them achieve better patient outcomes? And I think a lot of the companies today, because, and I mean, I'm not saying it's anybody's fault, I'm not pointing fingers. Our economy is in such a way that, we try to do the best we can with the little we have. And that's the culture we have. But let's better but smarter. And now that SAHPRA is doing the fantastic job by saying, hey, you guys, you need to have the standard up. You start to see, you have more confidence as a buyer to say, if you have ISO, I know I'm somewhat covered. I have some baseline to fall back on, and someone will help me in times of trouble to answer as to why we went down this road. I mean, I have a philosophy in life, and everyone at JO will tell you, I believe in failure. Failure teaches you things, but fail at your best.
Sure.
Yes.
Don't fail because somebody told me that they're cheaper.
Absolutely.
You
I like
are
that.
you are accountable to know. You can't tell me I didn't know.
That's
You
true.
are in that
And-
position of procurement. That means every drama or every risk attached to that name procurement, you are accountable for.
Yeah.
So you go update your skill set. You go update your team. You do everything possible because people who's 84 years old, like your grandmother, is silently trusting that brand of facility she's in to do the right thing.
Absolutely correct.
You understand? And I can tell you, first, with about 20 years in medtech, South Africa has a fantastic healthcare system.
No, we do. We really do.
We compared to the rest of the world, you'll be shocked. The groups are doing phenomenal jobs. You get a couple instances where patients are affected by poor quality treatment or healthcare, but that's just one aspect. The good that the healthcare system is in South Africa is doing is often played down. Majority of the time played down.
There's a reason why people come from overseas to our hospitals. So, and that happens constantly. But now let's say, for instance, it goes pear-shaped. We're all people. People make mistakes.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So there might be an instance where something does happen in a hospital. The difference there between an ISO 13485 certified company versus one that's not is there's an adverse event procedure in place. The others don't. So now they're running around not knowing what to do, where the ISO certified company knows exactly what to do. They know how to handle it. They communicate with the hospital and it gets sorted. So at the end of the day, you do get the best for your patient, even if it goes wrong.
Like, I'll tell you now, SAHPRA has legislation in place where if you're the importer and you have your branding on it, you may not be the manufacturer. Remember, you contract manufacturer.
Sure.
But SAHPRA has a legislation where they've made a ruling if it has your brand, you are considered as the manufacturer. So all liabilities you are to answer for. You can't tell them, my factory that's manufacturing for me in China or India or wherever, he now must take liability. They said no, you are. If there's
You're
a product
responsible.
recall, I mean, product recalls happen. Look, it happens all the time,
In all industries, actually.
right?
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
you hear in the car manufacturing,
A lot of
you
that.
buy a car 2 years later, oh, your brakes have a problem.
Correct. It's
Please
called a
bring
recall campaign. Yes.
Right, recall campaign. Same with medical devices. There are instances where it went through the factory, went through the proper processes, but because time had elapsed, people are using the product. They found something going wrong. They notify it. They do the test again and find, hey, it is correct. We need to recall this from the market. It happens all the time.
Sure.
Now, let me ask you this question. Joe Block down the road who doesn't have a system. His manufacturers trusted him to now go and remove this from the market because their brand name is involved here.
Yeah.
How would he start to go remove this from the market?
Well, he probably doesn't have a system in place, I would think.
Now
You
you
wouldn't
as
even know where it is,
Yeah.
where his stock is, yeah.
now you as the procurement man now, you get this field service notice from this company saying, hey, this product here has been recalled. Or you hear from Ravi R on news on the radio. Guys, you hear about this product recall for this particular product.
Sure.
You as a procurement manager is vibing now. You listen to this while having your coffee. And then because there's no batch numbers, you don't know nothing.
You forgot.
But you know
7 years ago.
exactly. But you know we use this product. You gotta run to the office. Guys, there's a recall on this product. Okay, but now which batch, boss?
Yeah.
Your team now, which batch?
Yeah.
So you gotta phone Joe Block. There's a product recall. Do you know about it? No, I'll get back to you.
Scary.
Now, this guy will have to go and check now, which batch was it. How did he know? Because when you receive it, it was never documented that which batch you got. But the manufacturer is going to tell you, hey, I sent you this batch.
Yeah. They've
Now-
got the records.
So-
Now, when he sells it, does he batch it and realize who he sent it to? Because that's what I'm saying to you. ISO 1345 covers everything. If you give us a product recall, under 3 minutes, I can tell you that particular batch number, who we sold it to, what's in our inventory, and how fast we can collect it from the market.
And not just that. Jeremy, I'm going to use your company as an example. You guys get audited 3 times a year. No, that's a lot. You know your house is in order.
By who? Audited 3 times a year by who?
So
That's
the
important.
notified body we use is Lloyd's Register or DQS.
Where are they from?
Lloyd's is in London and around the world.
Right.
So DQS is German-based company, and then we have to do 2 internal audits. So before the main audit starts from the body, you are counted to do an internal review to say that you've done your balances and checks to see whether each process in that whole ecosystem was followed. So we'll do sampling. So let's say receiving stock. I'd do a sampling on an individual to see how the stock was received, whether it was batched correctly, or follow the whole process to see if it was done to the T.
But coming back to that point, so compliance is incredibly strict.
Oh, it's part of our
in,
culture.
yeah, in accordance with ISO 485. So coming back to your point
Yes.
is,
So your house is in order. So before a recall even takes place, part of the whole 13485 system is Jeremy and his team does data analysis. They look at complaints, they look at breakdowns, they look at everything. So before the hospital even knows there's a problem, they know there's a problem and they handle it before it becomes a problem. So
Yes.
recalls are identified sometimes by companies using 13485 correctly to say, whoa, guys, we need to speak to the supplier. We're catching on to something here. Let's have a chat with them. So lives get actually saved
Yes.
by internal systems being used correctly. So by the time they pick it up and send it to the supplier, it's been sorted. No patient went through their drama, everything, no recall required because it was nipped in the bud because they used it.
With us, Ravi, I'm an opportunist, right?
Sure.
But I'd like to believe an opportunist with ethics. Right?
Sure.
I think even in COVID, you won't believe it. Before COVID, we were selling masks. It was part of our bread and butter line here. 2019, I was in Singapore. A friend of mine told me, please be careful, there's something coming. Please be careful. It's gonna be big. So just be careful. So every year.
Did your friend have a
No. I think
like
it was
a hint
hushed tones.
or
Yeah. It was already out back then. It was in December 2019.
right? Okay.
And I remember very
Patient one
correctly.
was around there.
Yeah, so I
in
remember,
South Africa?
But no. It wasn't yet in South Africa.
Okay.
Patient 0 must have happened before that for him because he was in Malaysia warning me, right?
Right.
So we got back home, and every year, January, is Arab Health. It's a place where we have exhibitions for all companies on the world that are medtech, right? Showcase their products, and we as distributors will go and see what our market requires. And we go. I remember everyone stayed away from the Chinese pavilion because they said this massive virus that's coming out is out of China. So no one could put like a factual argument as to it is true or not. And I remember people telling me, you do masks, please don't sell masks just yet. This was already in January. He said, just hold on to your mask because the price of masks are going to go out the roof. And I was like, cool, because I just got 2 containers that came of masks. I'll just phone South Africa now and tell the office to keep the masks.
You know, you're going to have to do
This
a
is
whole
interesting,
podcast
though.
just for the
Yeah.
conspiracy theorists listening to
Yeah.
this.
That's true.
Because I'm thinking of like,
No.
hold on, we went into lockdown at the end of March. I remember it very
Yeah.
clearly.
No.
I can picture it
No,
right
January,
now
we were already
when we got
ready.
the announcement. But you're talking about January.
January,
Already knowing.
I remember I phoned my product manager. I said, hey, Kyle, please keep our mask. Did this arrive? Right? He says, I don't know, but it's already gone. I'm like, what do you mean already gone?
Sold. Ordered.
He said, it's
Done.
already, a customer took a whole container. I'm like, okay, how much did you sell it for? No, I give them a very good price. 17 rand a box. Ravi, 17 rand a box of 25
Oh,
masks.
no. You
Right?
know, you could
That's-
have been retired by
Exactly.
now.
Do you know it started to escalate? I mean, guys were selling 1,200 a box or whatever. People were air freighting stock in. But it got to a point where, as the opportunist in me was coming through, I'm like, hey, this falls 2% of my product list. I can make so much of money. Let me phone my friends back in China and see what we can do.
Order more.
Order more. Phone that guy, which I knew for 10 years, Mr.
Whatever.
So-and-so.
Yeah.
I need at least 5 containers. He's like, yeah, the price just quadrupled. So, excuse me?
I
He said,
remember
well,
that.
the US is paying me that amount. If you want it, you got to give that amount. I was like, okay, cool. I can't do this. I had to now go and further deep dive what a mask is made of because now that entrepreneurial person is coming out now.
Correct.
Maybe I can make this locally. We got a factory. We can try and do something here. And when you start to unpack the sensitivity and the ramifications of producing something you have no knowledge about,
Yes.
that's why I said you got to have ethics in this game
Yes.
because some people are not ethical. I had to walk away from this opportunity. Say to myself, generally, there'll come a time where you will make your mask. But for now, we let it lie. We never went and sold masks after that. It was at 2 containers that came in. It
Done.
went away.
Done.
We never sold masks. We probably passed on, bought from a local supplier to help our customers. But under our branding, we never did. We came out of COVID. We developed our own mask brand. And we then launched our new brand of masks. But that's after doing so much of research, so much of testing, right?
In compliance with SAHPRA and ISO.
Everything
Absolutely.
in lines because sometimes opportunity is not for me. Not every opportunity is my opportunity because I look at the ramifications and what it could do to someone that is completely oblivious.
Which brings us to the point about what's happening to our friends Joe Block down the road. Can they
Exactly.
continue trading? They are not compliant with ISO.
And you started off the
Yeah.
podcast asking, like, during COVID, every mother, granny was selling,
Correct.
right?
And using it wrong now because part of ISO is training the people to use it right. Now you're touching this bloody thing with your hands, contaminating it. all the time.
right?
Cross-contamination.
I won't lie to you. ISO covers even. I mean, you've met like Kifa. When you walked in.
Yes.
She's our
In the boardroom, yeah.
She's one of the regulatory pharmacists we have, right? One of her jobs is to audit every single staff member's to-do list. It's part of our QMS. That means they task for the day. Was it achieved? Was it let's say Jack is our clinical resource specialist. He's doing training on maybe flushing. One of the questions on his to-do list is, was your aim achieved? Where's the roster for the training? Our ISO auditors come and ask the day he put on that visit for his to-do list. Was it a week before? Is he planning ahead? I mean, now we have to pay for all of this to make sure they get audited. Our staff gets audited. And the intentions, because the culture in our facility, in our organization should be one where accountability is key. So it starts with even the cleaner. Do you know we had a minor non-conformance because we didn't put up the cleaning roster on the wall as to how often she cleans the toilets?
Yeah, is your work environment clean? But to come back to your question, Joe Soap's going to get away with it still for a while, maybe. But it's coming closer. So you are going to come to a point where you won't be able to trade if you don't have the right licenses. So, hey, good luck to you, because it is not something that is a dream. I know there was a lot of companies that said, we're not going to do it. This is South Africa. They're never going to enforce it. It has been enforced. It's there.
And then the thing is, the doctors, surgeons, the guys that really are cutting and then doing
Operations
with the devices. The last thing on his mind is whether this product is ISO or what.
Correct.
Absolutely.
He's got no time to think about that.
Right.
He's worried about the patient
knows he likes
and
it.
how he's going to
Doesn't know
conduct
ask
that.
the question.
He knows but let me tell you something. If he loses that patient, part of negligence, and if he tells you, I clipped the wrong wire or I clipped the wrong vessel,
Vein or artery or vessel,
whatever,
yeah.
Because at the point, I use this device every day, this thing malfunctioned for some, you gave me a new one. Who asked you to give me a new one? I'm so engrossed in focused in my
Procedure,
surgery.
yeah.
I didn't even notice that you gave me a new clipper or whatever.
Yeah.
And then when he's under scope there, who's going to pay for that insurance?
Correct.
Who's going to pay for the
Who's
whole?
going to take responsibility?
Who? Do you understand?
Yeah, this is complex.
Even
It's
the
very
doctors
complex.
need to start asking the questions. Guys, I want to see this thing, the standards this thing was made under.
But that's the purpose of this podcast. We make people wiser. We are, the idea behind Sip and Drip is to make people more aware. And when I talk about people, we're talking about the industry as a whole, whether you're a healthcare professional, whether you're a supervisor, whether you're in procurement. It's just to educate you and make you better. And
100%.
that is what Sip and Drip is all about. So there you go. You heard it first right here on Series 1, Episode 1 of Sip and Drip, our podcast moving forward, everything dealing with the medtech industry. My name's Ravi R. We're honored to have Emerentia Fritz with us, all the way from Heidelberg, joining us in Durban. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing your insight into this complex world. And of course, the MD of Jehu Industries, Jeremy Naidu. Thank you very much for sharing your insights.
Pleasure.
It's an absolute pleasure to be here. You'll be able to connect with me on all social media networks, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Twitter at the handle @DJ Ravi R. Thank you.